Hi, Maria Walsh. Great to hear from you here in Kilkenny, all the way from Galway.
How are you doing? Thanks for having me.
Now, thanks for coming on today in the live. You've been everywhere the last 24 hours talking about the inauguration. I think every radio show has had you on, so we're thrilled to have you here at the Kilkenny People. What a day yesterday.
Oh, what a day. Do you know, and for some, they might not know, I was born in the States, but raised in Ireland, and went back out to the States in my 20s, was in New York, and then my last home away from home was Philadelphia. So for me, what happened yesterday was just, you hear so many people say it already in the last 24 hours, was the fact that sigh of relief, that former President Trump has moved on, and we have a new anchor in place that will hopefully drive great change, positive change. And then a lot of firsts, like glass ceilings were being smashed left, right, and center, which is always an exciting day. And for many, you know, like I'm 33, I grew up as an Obama baby. And that great values-based political leader always inspired me. So yesterday was a lot of positive tick boxes for me.
His speech was so inspired, wasn't it? Like, he chose his words so well. From quotes like, it's not power that I want to think about, it's the possibilities that we can give you, and you know, our children, our children's children will judge us, and even the thought of that father looking at the ceiling at nighttime, worrying about bills and the economy. I mean, he chose it well, wasn't it? Like, he must have wonderful speech writers, or did that come from his heart?
Well, I mean, from all his speeches up to date, and the team that he built in the last coming weeks, you know, you could see a great structure to it. You could see the fact that he is an emotive speaker, and he always has been that. I mean, nearly 50 years, probably over 50 years working in the political life. So he's used to that, and that's the type of personality that I've seen him on all his interviews. But what I really was enamored about him yesterday was it was simplistic. It wasn't waffly. It was a journey. It was understanding that there is a lot of hardships to go. He was being transparent, and he was really passionate. And we miss that in politics. And I'm not just saying that because of the last 4 years in the United States and with President Trump, but I think we miss that throughout the world, that honest looking in the eye, even if it's down a camera lens, and trying to inspire people that we are all activists within our own lives. And the community is so essential to that. So if we're not looking after it, if we're not protecting it, then everything falls short. I'm in my house, I'm known as a little bit more of a cold-hearted, spirited person. But there was a few tears shed yesterday. And then just seeing Vice President Harris too. I mean, I was like.
and have you met either of them? Have you
Never? No, unfortunately, not yet, because I always like to put some good affirmations out there that I will. But I've been fortunate that I met President Clinton in Dublin randomly when I was a student, and then as the International Rose of Tree, very fortunately, over 2014, I met President Obama in the White House on St. Patrick's Day, and that was phenomenal. And one of those things actually where I say sometimes if I do question and answers with school kids, and they ask me what type of personalities have I met, but I'm really blasé about it. But yesterday kind of really struck home that like these are change makers, these are value-based emotive leaders, and I'm as inspired by them as what's on our doorstep here.
And it was, you know, I know they had the flags for the audience that should have been there of 200,000 odd people. But it was nice to see them all, the blended families, and they all chatting to each other. And, you know, I suppose when they were waiting for it all to start, they just looked as normal as anyone, didn't they?
Do you know, I was thinking that too, and like the super pump, like I'm going to do that to everybody now, like the fist pumps between Vice President Harris and Michelle Obama, and I seen even Jennifer Lopez's fiance, the baseball player whose name is gone from me. And he's standing around hanging with President Obama, and even Garth Brooks's exit when he was hugging like what it looked like more Republicans than Democrats, but there was just this sense of normalcy about it, which is phenomenal. But and I love the fact that even as Vice President Harris, her two grand nieces were just running around in various shots, and even
they were up and down to the loo, and
I loved it, because it was as if like you're in the community center down the road. Like, this is just a tick box, and we got to keep the dress clean until we take the photographs and then go off and play.
I think it'll have to be televised every time now. We want behind the scenes. And Gareth Brooks got a great old slagging yesterday on Twitter as well. Biden brought him, we couldn't see him in Croke Park, but he brought him to the inauguration. Do you believe Biden's Irishness? Like, his wife had the beautiful, as I call it, Aer Lingus green outfit on. Is it from the heart?
Absolutely. Just in I was watching news briefings with him after he became president-elect, and a reporter had asked about the United Kingdom, and he was the reporter's trying to get the English slant from him, and he was like, no, I'm not English, I'm Irish. And that clear definition. I know he has holidayed here many times for many years, in Mayo in particular. I also, because my constituency is the 13 counties, I have to give a shout out to Louth too, because I know they claim him, but I would be going against my own footballing spiritual beliefs if I didn't say I think his heart really belongs in Mayo, but I'll probably get in trouble for that. But for sure, and the impact, him as being the first Catholic president, Irish linked, since JFK, will have huge drives of even I think even tourism for us, never mind all the other economic values to it. But no, and the fact that I'm embarrassed every time I hear him speak in many ways, because he drops more James Joyce, Irish literature and poetic voices than I remember reading in secondary school. And hope many of the listeners and watchers can agree with me on this one. But as he's giving quotes, I'm like, oh God, I best learn that one now. Or just if ever I meet him, that I'm able to have some sort of language that we could share and have fun about.
I know our poetry has been well used in many speeches in the last 12 months, that and Harry Potter. Now back to you, lived in Pennsylvania, like Trump's key state, and your ballot was there and you voted there 4 years ago. What was it like being in Trump land?
Yeah, it was fascinating in the sense of just, because since I was born there, when I became of age, we always did and encouraged in our house to use your vote and hear your voice. So I have been doing absentee ballots for a number of years. In this last election, at the fact that Pennsylvania as a whole and Philadelphia really is the epicenter of the democratic change of that blue, it was phenomenal to say, like, your one vote among many millions really helped to push that over the line. It was scary though in the minutes and hours leading up to the final decision on who won, because of the fact that there was a lot of fraud talk and polarization and a heated debate and a lot of violence on the streets in Philadelphia. I still have friends living there, so you're nervous in terms of the health and safety of people, but an overwhelming sigh of relief again when the state turned blue, and a number of other states. And I don't know about you, but I was tuned into CNN, and I've never felt more proud to be an Irish American when you hear the likes of John King and now Donie O'Sullivan, who's the new probably more famous than President Biden now. Yeah. But when they do coverage on that, and then you just see red turn blue, and that people are getting out to vote. I mean, we there's still a lot of polarization. I think it was 74 million still went red. You can't ignore them. You can't forget them, obviously. Hence the reason why Biden's speech was so bipartisan about bringing people together yesterday. But when you get little wins like that, and ultimately when you get people feeling very passionate to give back to their community and make their voice heard, then as a Democrat, you're only delighted when the state turns blue.
But do you think it was because people were at home, they were in multiple lockdowns, They were watching the news for the past 12 months. They were looking for leadership from their leader. They weren't getting it. They were really seeing what he was really made of. Do you think that's what, lost the election for Trump?
For him, I think it was a multiple things, and I fully agree with you. I think COVID, in many ways, why it has constricted us, it also has gifted us time to evaluate what's important, and I hope that awareness has also grown here in Ireland and across Europe too. But in speaking with friends and family members, there was no excuses for them not to get out and vote. There was a lot of awareness of that get out to vote through social media. The fact that the 4 years and the trials and tribulations, the impeachments, the dirty tricks, the polarization, the us and them, I think stirred a lot of pots within people to say, hang on, where do I get out? Plus, I think the loss of 2016 against Hillary Clinton for the Democratic Party, this is my own take, is that they understood it's not top-down politics that's going to change and see a new Democrat in the office, be it in the Senate or the House or the White House itself. It is grassroots, and if people are not organizing on the ground, then nothing changes. And listening to his campaign manager, another West of Ireland woman, Jen O'Malley Dillon, and all her interviews to date, it was really about how in states that they knew were going to stay blue, we're going to get out to stay blue. Those that they knew there was a good race there to keep to challenge the redness, they challenged that, but it was all around getting people knocking at doors, much like we do here in the general elections or any campaign. It's like, how do we mobilize and get people out and get excited? And I think with Trump being Trump, it certainly just expedited people from wanting their voice heard.
Like white supremacy, racism, it's always there, but I think he gave it a voice. And the longer he was in power, I think people saw that. But one of my favorite quotes or descriptions of Trump, the editor or the assistant editor of the Washington Post, Eugene Robinson, described him as a Hitler in chief and a conspiracy theorist with the world's mega microphone. Like, do you think Trump is an anomaly? Like, was he a freak, or is he a freak, or is he going to go away?
No, I don't think he's going to go away. And I would never say he was a freak or an isolated moment. Absolutely not. I think on a daily basis, I learn in the European Union, there's that populist us and them divisiveness, throwing in a quick tweet to see the reaction, versus actually looking at the diplomatic and democratic voice. And trying to put your best foot forward, and that is growing. We see it in Hungary, we see it in Poland, we certainly see influences from Russia online. The fact that we've seen the insurrection in the state capital early this month is just a testament to there is pockets of that Trumpism everywhere. Now, I hate to give the word Trumpism because it's giving him more superpower, but that's the easiest way and the fastest way to describe it. But I don't think he's going to go away. I'd imagine from his goodbye speech yesterday that we'll see another Trump run. And I think, I personally think, but my team are always like, stop putting this out because it's not true and you're putting it out into the world. But I think we'll see a more right-wing conservative group spring from the Republican Party, and that will be led by Trump.
There's rumors, isn't there? It's either a third party he's going to form or his own media company. Well, again, for Trumpism.
Yeah. Well, if you look at documentaries like The Social Dilemma, the movie about Dick Cheney, like there's a number of things with Roger Stone, even documentaries, there's a number of things in place for many, many years, and he rose, and that fire will continue to inflame if we don't get people understanding that everything's built on compromise and negotiation, and that's how the world goes around. And if we're inciting hate, then that's all that will stem from it.
I know sometimes it feels like we're watching an episode of Homeland.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Women made history as well yesterday. America's new VP, Vice President Harris and Amanda Gorman. Wow, what speeches. You made history yourself as well, winning the Rose of Tralee.
well, that's a big stretch, but I appreciate that. Even to be in the mix of those names, I'll definitely take that.
You did, winning the Rose of Tralee back in 2014, and then a week later coming out about your sexuality. Like, was that planned? Did you feel you had to do it, or what was the reason?
I mean, if for anybody listening and watching, like, I am old. I'm an old Rose. Like, 2014 was a long time ago. And many facets and developments since. Never mind my hair change. But for me, and it's a great question, and I get asked this quite often with school kids when we're talking about sexuality and who I am and where I came from. But no, for me, I'd been living as a gay woman for many years. I'd always want to participate in the Rose of Tralee, and my first rose that I would remember would be she was a Mayo Rose from 1998. But in this, I won't even drop her name because Orla Roach, well, she's now Roach, but Orla O'Shea from 2004 would prefer for me to say she inspired me to get into the Rose of Tralee and become the international rose 10 years later. But for me, in terms of the sexuality, no, as I said, I've been living as a gay woman. It didn't really dawn on me, first and foremost, that I would ever be selected. So I was working with a fashion label called Anthropology in Philadelphia. I went to the Rose of Tralee with the intention of just having fun, and I blew my 10 days vacation on it, because in America you don't get any more than 10 days. I promised my boss I would be back. A lot of people say, well, your face dropped when you won, but I was more, my immediate reaction, because I probably like to work a little bit too much, was, oh my God, my boss is going to kill me. And I didn't know what this meant. So, and I knew they were watching. So I was like, I can't even buy time to figure out my plan. And it was only really the next day where the sexuality potential issue even dropped with me, because, as I said, I've been living as a gay woman for many years. When I got asked by the Sun, would I make a comment? They wanted to make it positive. For me, absolutely. But I did felt there was an element I had to control because for me, I was an older gay woman. I was 27 at the time. And, I never wanted me just be known as the gay rose. Like, I do a lot of different things. I'm mad about GA football. I volunteer. I worked in fashion. I had tattoos. I'm a pioneer. Like, there's a lot of different facets to everybody, regardless of their orientation. So I just didn't want it to be limited. And luckily the Sun kind of came on board with that mindset, and the rest is history, really. And I was welcomed in many rooms with open arms, and didn't break the festival, which is always positive. And we could, and was able to use it as a great podium for what I'm in now,
Exactly. And you haven't stopped. I go on with all the many hats you wore since. But talking about Orla O'Shea, or Orla Roach, she was the one who told me. I was on Instagram last night with her, telling her I was interviewing you, and she said, ask her about going around Ireland. Did you do all of Ireland?
Yeah.
In every county, like, never been done before?
Well, I was really fortunate. I was doing my, and for any climate activists, I promise I'm trying to figure out my carbon footprint since the Rose of Tralee year. But given the year that it was, I kept my full-time job in Philly, and then I was flying in every weekend to Ireland, which is great, because direct flights from Philly to Dublin made my life easier. Or else I would do a week here and a week there, whatever needed to happen. But a lot of it was just...
Sorry, Maria, you kept your full-time job while being the International Rose.
Yeah. Now there was pockets of time like the trip around Ireland, the 32 counties that you mentioned there, where I just took a little bit longer, but I would have worked over Christmas in order to build up my days to come off. So I was just juggling at the top. I mean, in hindsight, it was the stupidest thing I've probably ever done, and hence the reason why I have under-eye bags the size of Minneapolis. But that trip in itself was, I think it was over 10, 11 days, hitting the 32 counties. And it really was trying to build on the momentum that, fortunately, the public based off my sexuality or who I am, or the fact that I obviously ate the Blarney Stone, never mind kissed it. And there was an appetite to learn more about the festival. So, you know, the committee and myself were like, well, why not go for it? So we did the 32 counties. There was times where I was in counties for 4 or 5 hours. And then I remember waking up in one, lunch in another, dinner in one more, and then back to another one. And it was amazing. But then you missed moments like we did the headlines in most counties. And you were grabbing little chats with former Roses like Orla or current Rose sisters, and you were trying to make sure those that were coming out to meet with you, particularly young women, that they understood a little bit more about the festival other than the quick flashes and then you're moving on again. So, but a lot achieved, and it was great. Yeah, it was a fantastic year.
It prepared you for your career in politics anyway, canvassing.
Yeah, you know, I laugh because the party, you know, for a while that fortunately or unfortunately for them decided to allow me into the family. You know, while we were canvassing, we were kicking off. I remember some senior political leaders were like, "You're not bad at canvassing. Like, how did you get comfortable with this?" And I was like, "None of you have respect in the Rose of Tralee. Like, we're born chatters, like we're born canvassers. You just give us a topic or an issue and we'll bring it home." Like that's the sense of what the festival is. We know who we are. We're confident to sell the message. And yeah, essentially, yeah, but as you say, it built the best test run for me for running in the Europeans.
That's it. Every politician should do an apprenticeship then in the Rose of Tralee as a rose or a chaperone.
Yeah, well, I'll leave that lit there, and hopefully more people watching will think about the festival
when it's back. Hope, please God. So you must have, I have to ask you this. You've had obviously a few hours in Kilkenny. What do you remember of our lovely city or county?
Oh, well, I'm very fortunate. I remember that time Orla had the Rose Committee had a gorgeous little walkway. We went down. I always remember running down to Serendipity Boutique because I was a few dresses short. And I think I ran into Folkestone too at the time. Obviously, seeing the castle. I know I'm naming more stores than I am places, but I remember we just walked the cobblestones and beautiful part of the world. I'm very fortunate that I try and go back as often as I can to hang out with the Roach family. And I also go back usually once a year with No Name Club, which is held in the Lyrath Hotel. Yeah. So I'll come in on the Friday night. I've played MC for them for many years. And we spent Friday.
He's spoken lovely about you as well.
Oh, yeah. But fabulous. I mean, I grew up in that organization, but for me, I had been to the city then a number of different times, going to Murphy's Ice Cream with a bunch of teenagers and learning about the ways of the world, being a part of Darkness into Light there. Myself and Orla did that a couple of years too. So it's a city for me that you put on the runners and you just start walking and you're chatting and you're meeting with people. But yeah, the highlights were the castle, but I'm I love environments, but when you get to share them and spend them with people like Orla and Brian and the kids and the No Name Club, it just makes the trip more sweeter. But yeah,
thanks for mentioning the shops. We've great boutiques in Kilkenny.
You have the best boutiques. and for any of the ladies, and I can't remember the name of the store, but there are these fabulous ladies for this. I shouldn't even be saying this, the intimate bits. And I'd never bought an undergarment for a tight dress before. We'll just leave my Spanx for anybody who might be watching and wondering. And this woman very kindly, thank you. This woman very kindly, like at my age of I think it was 27, 28, it was over the Rose trip, had walked me through and handheld me into terms of this is what you need to do, love. And it's one of the highlights of my trip to Kilkenny because I felt like I had really entered into womanhood. I shouldn't be sharing that story, but listen, it's a true story.
Oh, I love that. Thanks for the plug. So going from undergarments to the Defence Forces.
Yeah, that's a bit of a stretch, isn't it?
You spent 3 years. Why the change of, what did you work as, by the way, in Billing when you were working there?
So my undergrad, for any potential CEO filler-outers watching this, my undergrad is journalism and visual media, but I always worked within the media world, fell into TV and all the ops side of it. So helping with scheduling and teams and operations. And then when I moved when I was 21 to New York, worked with a fashion agency called AR New York, and was behind the scenes at supporting team members. It was an entry level job. Worked with a photo agency called Wilson Winsell then. And then I got a random phone call to move to Philly, which a lot of people who were living in New York at the time was like, why are you leaving the best city in the world? But for me, it just never felt right. I never cared enough for the nonsense that the city brought. I love visiting it, but living it is very different. So when Philadelphia came calling, I said, well, 1 year, let's go for it. And then with there, I fell into a fashion world behind a brand. So the brand is Anthropology. The sister company here would be Urban Outfitters. So within that URBN link. But I always had a vision and a dream to join the armed forces. So defense forces from a young age. It was always something I was really interested in. Always something I loved, the teammanship, the camaraderie, the fact that you were wearing a uniform, the fact that you were upskilling consistently and honing in on your awarenesses. And then each and every year, as I was living in the States, I was changing job title or job spec or another challenge. And the Defence Forces dream was just getting further and further. And unfortunately, it is a young man or woman's game. But when I moved back to Ireland in just after the Rose year in 2015, to see if I could make a career here, it was something I was keeping an eye on. And then an ad popped up on Facebook to say that the Reserve Defence Forces were opening up to enlisting people. I was just under the age and I went for it. I have never been more nervous in anything in my life because back in the day, I probably would have been fit enough to do a 3.2 kilometer in the distance in the time they needed it. I wasn't then, but I really, really wanted to make it work and did it then for a few years, based in the Curragh. Used to do weekends and overnights. Did a 2-week training camp as an entry-level soldier, and I had to get special permission to go and judge the regional Rose of Tralee down in Tralee. And if, as you say about like the undergarments to the uniform, I remember packing the car, and one side of the car was like armed, Defence Force stuff, boots, shoe polish, sports gear, and then the other was high heels, jewelry, and dresses. But I loved it. I cannot recommend people to check out the Reserve Defence Forces or the full-time Defence Forces enough. It was phenomenal, and if I hadn't been elected, I'd still be helping out in the reserves.
So you were there 3 years, and then you had to make the tough decision, wasn't it?
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, for once you get elected, be it into the Dáil or the Parliament, our legislation has changed that you need to obviously not serve in an armed force. I think there's grey area around the local council level, but unfortunately, yeah, for me. But it was a really hard. I guess when I ran, I had it in the back of my head that this is a possibility would disappear. But when you're running for something first, particularly a new venture like politics, you like the Rose of Tralee, you never know what's going to happen. But I remember the day, I had to officially sign the documentation and hand over the kit. And I got to participate though in my number one, so my dress uniform at an anniversary for the Reserve Defence Forces. So I got to hit a number of milestones, just not as long as I wanted to, but I got elected. So in many ways, I'm very grateful. In other ways, it's just one of the consequences of life.
There's no stopping you.
No, there is.
Energy. There is. Oh my God. Yeah. So tell us why Fine Gael then?
For me, I must give a shout out to Women for Election, an organization that is phenomenal for anybody who might be watching, men or women who might be thinking of just upskilling or learning more about what politics entails. I gifted myself in 2018 a one-day course there, and they were holding in Dublin just to learn. I mean, for me, I always like to challenge myself, and I always am trying to figure out what that purpose or purposes is in life, and where my values stand. And I found myself in a self-employed world in the media, just always falling short or nothing working out, and I was frustrated. And I took a sheet of white paper in mid 2018, going like, what do I instantly say yes to, and what do I it takes me a couple of hours to come back on, those emails or those requests.
Mm-hmm.
And I found bit by bit, I found myself just moving more towards a public service role, similar to what I'd done with the Rose Tree, but just more maybe political experience. And anyways, long story short, gifted myself this one day Women for Election seminar. Was blown away at just how much behind the scenes go on between quotas, constituencies, different political parties, and narrowed it down to, I mean, policy is one thing, absolutely, but you need to envision yourself in making change. And if you're around the table of change makers or like-minded people, then that change becomes more positive. And then I really, with that in mind, then I thought about, what party members did I come across in my Rose of Tralee or years prior? Because I grew up in a very volunteer-led house. So we were always involved in senior citizens dinners or St. Paddy's Day parade, church gate collections. And I started saying, what politicians really inspired me? And there are some amazing politicians throughout the political spectrum. But for me, it was the likes of Helen McEntee, Simon Coveney, of course, Leo Varadkar, these change makers that have really set the stall in making amends in many ways and driving the future forward. And I thought if they could take me, then maybe. And that's really where it came from for me.
And like you're saying about change makers, like something you're very passionate about, and how does it work in your role in politics? You're very passionate about mental health.
Mm-hmm.
And what are you trying to do that with your current role? What are you trying to?
Yeah, so for me, over the campaign, I ran on a couple of different issues, as we say. But one of them, and the one that came to my forefront, was mental health and the lack of supports that we have. We have amazing supports in many ways, but it's reactive care. So if an issue presents, then here's where you go. Be it your GP or counsellor. But what about the proactive care? So each and every one of us has mental health. Some of us is more challenged than others in terms of, different traumas we grew up in, different experiences we have. But I was always fascinated by young people and helping them become the best leaders they can be in the future. And that was through my experience with No Name Club and the Pioneers. But I fell into step with the likes of Jigsaw, which is an amazing youth organization that really teaches younger people how to upskill in the transition. So like a relationship breaks down, a paper doesn't go well, you get dropped from the team, you're figuring out your sexuality. How do you communicate? What's the words or the supports you need to get through that transition? Because we all have transitions. COVID is just a long extended version of that, but we've gone through different lockdowns, and each one of us has to pick ourselves up and keep moving on regardless of age. So for me, that was one of the big things. It still very much is, trying to figure out how I can make the European Union, along with many other MEPs, understand that a physical health and mental health are the same things. We spend about 4% of GDP on mental health reaction care, but can you imagine what we could do if, on the employment side, employers right throughout the European Union didn't just look at sick days, but they also looked at mental health days? Or how can we get, you pick up the phone or you wake up in the middle of the night and you're like, I need support. How quickly can we get that support right throughout, be it rural or urban areas, right throughout the European Union? So myself and a group of MEPs are right across the political house are creating a European Year of Good Mental Health. Hopefully we'll bring down funding, legislation change. And in essence, we're trying to put pressure on financial ministers like Pascal Donohoe. I'm going to give him a shout out because hopefully he'll see this and he'll get waves of encouragement, that every time they make a decision about funding, they're allocating a certain percentage of that funding towards mental health supports. Just like we'll be doing with the Green Deal coming from Europe, or the impact we're trying to make on the climate as global citizens. It has to be a holistic look at how each citizen is showing up in the society, and mental health is a huge part of that. I could go on, so I'll stop.
Yeah. How are you finding with the job? You're based in Galway now. You should be in Strasbourg.
Yeah, this week is plenary week, so it's our voting week. So typically we would do 3 weeks in Brussels. Realistically, maybe I'll give you a short term, but I don't want this to deter particularly women from getting into the European Parliament, into politics as a whole. So I would leave my home house at 2 a.m. on a Monday morning. Typically post-COVID works. and I would drive to Dublin Airport, and then I'd fly to Brussels. I'd be in Brussels Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, try and get back into Ireland late Monday or Wednesday night. That's usually around 1 or 2 a.m. And then that allows me to be anywhere in the constituency of the 13 counties, Galway, Donegal, Mayo, across to Louth, from Thursday to Sunday, and then you start again. So it's essentially living 2 weeks in one. And then once a week for 4 days, we travel to Strasbourg. And that's where official voting happens. But we do a lot of work in committees and groups within Brussels. And then obviously you have to be accountable to your constituents where you represent. For me, it's just a huge area. So you're trying to go west to east and then on the way back east to west, if that makes sense.
Do you sleep at all? Is there any downtime?
Yeah, I have a lovely spotlight right now on me that's covering some black under eyes. But
every house in Ireland knows a spotlight now.
No, there is. I tell you what, I feed off other people's energies, and which has been a struggle. And this is where my own mental health has been challenged since COVID. It's just I realized how I feed off others, but if I'm not self-caring or fulfilling my own mental health supports, then when things like this happen or my own transition periods happen, then I quickly have to recheck myself. So I've been trying to get into a good sleeping pattern, but it depends on the night that is in.
Okay, and what are your mental health supports? Like you're so busy. What do you do?
For me, I have a great team. I have a great team, three amazing women who make sure that meetings are spread out, making sure I gift myself time to grab food, because otherwise I'm a devil for like, oh, I can do a 15-minute meeting there, or let me make that quick phone call, and they're like, no, you have to step away, because realistically when I show up to things, particularly youth events, you have to bring, and you have to bring this energy, and if you'd fall short of that, not only are you disappointed in yourself, but there's a residue left within the event enter the meeting, and you just don't want that felt. So trying to get out for walks, trying to read more. I'm currently doing some courses around coaching and farming, and trying to grow my awareness of how to be a better human in this world. And then
you're not trying to be a farmer next now.
I grew up on a small farm, and so I'm doing my green cert, which
probably getting the green cert next.
Which is my farm that I started it. Do you know what it was? It was my one day off per month where I would go to Ballinrobe to the Chaga Centre in Mayo. And for one day, it would flex my student brain, which was always great because, when you get into European politics as a whole, you're very legislation based. So I'm like reading all these reports going, I don't ever remember having to do this much reading in secondary school. So at least with the Green Cert, it allowed me to learn and kind of move my way through it. But anyways, get out, be kind to your health, listen to good podcasts, sweat a little bit, meditate, journal. And if I did all of those things, I'd be a better human. But that's what on paper is what I try and do.
Listen, if we achieve half it, we've done something.
Absolutely.
Maria, we could talk all day and night. I'm sure people's batteries are running low if they're listening to this. Final question. I don't know if you've seen Hamilton, the music about the founding fathers of America. I haven't seen it, but my 11-year-old daughter sings a song night and day. And there's a line that really sticks with me. It's about George Washington, and I had to write it down here. As we have our eye on the future, history has their eye on us.
Beautiful, isn't it?
So it's this powerful line. What do you hope that history will say about Maria Walsh?
This is probably the hardest question. I would hope that history writes in a very small byline somewhere on a footnote of a page that that I showed up authentically and with curiosity, because I think when you have both authenticity and the curious brain, then I think your awareness is just constantly growing, and you're never limiting yourself to always just sitting on one side. You're constantly just trying to challenge yourself and those around you. So that I was a kind heart, and I was passionate about Mayo, GAA, men and women's sports, and I did an okay job in supporting people, and I don't know, made one or two people feel a little bit more comfortable in their own skin along the way.
I think they'll have a lot, and history will have a lot more to say about you than just that. But I know for this week, the third week in January, into a lockdown that's probably going to be extended, no doubt. I think you're going to have lifted loads of people. We just had one day, and yeah, you've energy. Your energy is contagious. And like that, I'm sure people will feed off.
You're very, very kind, and thank you. And I love the fact that we can do this. I wish it was in person, because I really want to see this pink couch that is very famous. But I'm always delighted to support all people, but particularly women, because I think, you know, the conversation is a two-way street, and I think the more we become narrow-minded and not eager to have those conversations, then what we end up getting is what I think the US got for the last 4 years. So thank you for opening up your audience and open up your home.
And the next time we're in Kilkenny, I promise I'll meet you out in O'Shea Roach's farm and we'll go shopping.
Yeah, done. Or like, we're picking you up, Brian. We're not doing an ounce of dairy. So
really lovely to speak to you, and God bless.
Likewise. Thank you very much.
There's my mother ringing me. Take care.
Thanks. Thank you.